Back to the daily grind, and shout out to the full-time patrons. Make sure to hit subscribe if you're new and hit thumbs up if you're not a baby back bagel biting bitch boy, cause you know what time it is. It's full time.
MMA.
It's your boy Taco Bell Wanting, aka MMA Academics, and holy fuck. When I read this news this morning, I have to admit my jaw low-key dropped. The UFC has cut the number 11th ranked Yair Rodriguez, or number 13th ranked, for refusing a fight at UFC 227 in LA with Zabit Sharipov. Now, some of you guys that have been keeping up with the channel or keeping up with the MMA news know a little bit about what's going on, but for those of you that don't, I'm going to fill you in really fast. Now, recently Dana White has announced 3 fights, right? We talked about this. They all came out of left field. Rockhold versus Gustafsson, not out of left field until you say it's not for an interim title fight, because we've been hearing about that fight. The only difference is we've been hearing that Rockhold versus Gustafsson would likely be for an interim title. Well, Dana White refuted that, as well as Dana White said that the UFC is interested or working on a George St. Pierre versus Nate Diaz fight. And I was like, yo, GSP versus Nate Diaz, a lot of people that cover the sport are like, yeah, that fight came out of left field as well. Yeah, they're both two big names, but Nate Diaz and GSP haven't really ever showed interest in fighting each other. I'm talking about each other. It's not like Nate Diaz has been calling out GSP or GSP has been calling out Nate. Hell, if you're talking about Nate's possible future fights, we've all been talking about lightweights, maybe a title fight with Tyron Woodley at welterweight, or maybe Conor McGregor trilogy. And when you talk about GSP, we've been talking about possibly a title fight with Tyron Woodley, maybe a super fight with Conor McGregor, maybe defending that belt at 185, but there's never been any talk about GSP versus Nate Diaz, so that news was out of left field about GSP versus Nate Diaz that Dana White has told on the Unfiltered podcast. Well, that was 2 fights, and then of course the cherry on the top for the fights Dana White had prematurely announced was Zabit Sharipov versus Yair Rodriguez. That fight was not done to any of our knowledge, and actually everyone that's been keeping up with the sport has saw a reluctance from Yair Rodriguez's team. He hasn't been super open to the Zabit fight. We've heard times of Zabit, going to the UFC Performance Institute trying to run into Yair to set up the fight. Like, hey bro, I'd like to fight you. Can we get it in? But he never ended up finding Yair Rodriguez, and now it looks like he's turned down officially the Zabit fight again. And if in the way he did it, he put hashtag fake news, right? Because Dana White reported that the fight was a done deal. That was reported by the LA Times. And now we've got Yair Rodriguez who put just hashtag fake news. So I haven't accepted that fight, right? That's what you would assume from that tweet. And if you've been keeping up, he has been reluctant to accept the fight. So whenever he calls fake news on Dana White saying that, yo, that's fake news, we're not set to fight, it's not a done deal, kind of put Dana White in a bad spot. I mean, Dana White, it's not like it's the first time, it's not like Dana White really cares about his reputation or his credibility as far as the news is concerned. That's something like Ariel Helwani. He really cares about his credibility. Dana White has said things that the UFC might be interested in, might be working on, but they don't necessarily come to fruition. Maybe kind of like this Nate Diaz GSP fight. Of course, the UFC is interested in it's 2 of their biggest stars. Of course, they're interested in the fight, but that doesn't mean the fighters are. Well, unless these motherfuckers want to get cut, they better accept that fight. No, I'm just saying, yo, this was out of nowhere. Yair Rodriguez got cut by the UFC, and this is why. It wasn't just for turning down Zabit. Supposedly, he had also turned down a Ricardo Lamas fight. This is what Dana White had to say. The guy's off a year, rejects a fight with Lamas, and then doesn't want to fight the guy below him in the rankings. He can go somewhere else. We have no use for him. He calls that fight fake news? Well, this is real news. And then even further this was reported by Lance Pugmire on Twitter. Keep in mind, this guy seems like he has an open mind with Dana White, right? It seems like this guy talks to Dana White, because this is the same guy that said told by Dana White or per Dana White Zabit versus Yair was a done deal, right? So Dana White clearly this guy speaks with Dana White, or is in some close contact, because he also said told by Dana White that if a fighter like Rodriguez turns down both Ricardo Lamas and Zabit in what should have been a compelling battle after taking a year off, he can take his act elsewhere. Dana White just posted on Twitter, and he just put, if you check Dana White's Twitter, it just says real news. So almost like a direct response to Yair Rodriguez, who tweeted fake news. Now Dana White saying real news, and we're talking about Yair being cut. Oh, that is low-key some cutthroat El Jefe boss shit right there. Dana White is on his motherfucking boss. Hey, that's El Jefe, man. I've been trying to tell y'all. I know Dylan Dennis got the nickname El Jefe, but Dana White is El Jefe, bro. The president of the UFC clearly ain't fucking around. And this is not only, man, this is sending a sign to all the guys or potential future stars of the UFC, man. You better get with the program or go and join Leslie Smith at Project Spearhead, because, no, I'm just saying, this shit right here, I will say this. I'm not going to preach about a union or nothing like this. I will say this. There's no way anything like this is fucking happening with the fighters union. Cutting a ranked fighter because he didn't take a fight? Hold on. Beep, beep, beep. Let's talk about Nate Diaz for a second. Hasn't fought since when? UFC 202. I mean, we could talk about a lot of these guys, right? Nate Diaz, Nick Diaz. We could talk about a lot of fighters, Ronda Rousey, that are probably still enrolled in the UFC that are not fighting. And according to Dana White, turning down fights. He said, according to the Nate Diaz's contract, he's got to offer him 3 fights a year. If Nate Diaz turns down the fights, there's not much he can do about it. But he's offering fights because it's part of the contract. I have to honor this. I have to offer Nate Diaz 3 fights a year, or it's on us. So they're offering guys fights, but there's people that you see out here that haven't fought in almost 2 years. Nate Diaz fought at UFC 222. That's almost 22 pay-per-views ago. Or yeah, UFC 202 is when Nate Diaz fought. I mean, Ronda Rousey and Conor McGregor have fought, and I fucking love Nate Diaz, but I'm a fan of Yair Rodriguez. I mean, he got exposed, you could say, in his fight versus Frankie Edgar. He got the dog shit beat out of him, and you know what I'm saying? That's a fact. Frankie Edgar, the answer, one of the best featherweights in the world, did that. He did that to the up-and-coming prospect Yair Rodriguez, put him out. Now, with that being said, you kind of understood, you know, why Yair would take a long break. I mean, we didn't know about him turning down the Ricardo Lamas fight, but that could have just been a mandatory offer the UFC had to make. But I will say this. Yair Rodriguez, like let's say Edson Barboza, would you have really been that pissed or that mad if Edson Barboza took longer off in between his Khabib and Kevin Lee fights? A lot of people probably felt like that, right? You just got your face tenderized by Khabib Nurmagomedov. Damn, you're already coming back? You know what I'm saying? If you can either take that route or you can fully try and heal up, maybe like the Yair Rodriguez route, even though it's been over a year in the UFC, you know what I'm saying? You probably don't need a full year and a half to heal your face from Frankie Edgar. I mean, he did some damage, but at the same time, you're probably healthy enough to fight at this point, but it's looking like you're not taking the fights that the UFC is trying to present, as in the Ricardo Lamas, the Zabit fight, and probably even further pissed Dana White off when you called fake news on his report that you versus Zabit was a done deal. And see, this is the thing. I heard some people saying, and this is looking like it's true, whenever Dana White or the LA Times reported that this was a done deal, it could have been posturing by the UFC to show, you know, Yair how excited people are for this fight. Because as Lance Pugmire said, this is a compelling battle. This is more than a compelling battle. This is some ninja shit. Zabit versus Yair would have been like 2 fucking human helicopters in that joint, throwing all type of crazy spin shit, ninja shit off the fence. Nigga, we're not gonna get to see Yair Rodriguez versus Zabit. Yeah, man, fuck that. Fuck, man, Yair, take your shit to Bellator, bro, because just thinking about that fight, dog, yo, I'm low-key pissed off. You're lucky I ain't behind the button, bro, because I'd have probably tried to get the money from your last fight. No, I'm just fucking around. I'm just saying, bro. Damn. Yair versus Zabit might be the best featherweight matchmaking as far as styles, making fights that we could see. I would hope Zabit didn't come in here and try and Khabib Yair or Frankie Edgar Yair. I want to see the ninja spinning shit from both of these dudes. I'm talking about 2 real-life ninjas. Yair Rodriguez maybe more just a striking ninja, you know what I'm saying? But either way, the fight would have been insane. A lot of people were hyped whenever this fight was announced as a done deal. I'm telling you, if you go to Yair Rodriguez's fucking Instagram, no lie, no joke, the second after this fight was announced as a done deal, Bro, I seen more Zabit times on Yair Rodriguez's picture than I seen people saying Habib time. You know there's the whole Habib time, Habib champ, Habib, Habib. Huge fan base. Zabit's got a similar fan base, maybe some of the same fan base, because if you get announced to fight Zabit, all you see is Zabit time, Zabit time, Zabit time, Zabit time. Maybe Yair Rodriguez saw all of those Zabit times and reconsidered. No, he was already reluctant about the fight before that. But either way, man, it looks like Yair Rodriguez has been cut from the UFC for refusing to fight not only Zabit Magomedsharipov at UFC 227, but also turning down a fight with Ricardo Lamas, who's ranked above him. So now you're at the point Yair Rodriguez hasn't fought in over a year, turned down a guy above him, turned down a guy below him. Who the fuck are you gonna fight, yourself? A guy ranked the exact same as you? Come on, bro. So I see where the UFC's coming from, but at the same time, it's a little unprecedented to cut a ranked fighter. You know what I'm saying? Number 11 in the rankings? Get out of here. Very unprecedented. Also, when you think about there's other fighters that haven't fought since before Yair, they're not getting cut. You know, Nate Diaz, and I know he's a bigger star, but at the same time, Yair Rodriguez, he might not be as big of a star as a Nate Diaz or a Conor McGregor, clearly, not close. But he was a guy with the potential. He was a guy that was supposed to be helping the UFC capitalize maybe on that Mexican market, Kelvin Gastelum, some of these other guys. But it looks like that's not important enough to the UFC if you're calling fake news on Dana White and turning down these fights. So, whew, this news was insane. I got to get to work soon. I might get one more video out. Let the full-time family know what you think in the comments. I'm out. And as always, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the subscribe button and also hit the notification bell right next to it so you're notified every time I upload a video. I'm out.
This is #1 bullshit.